And we're rolling. And commence your presentation.
Okay, I will give my best.
And welcome to Harold.
As you heard, I'm coming from Germany. And I did science half of my life, and I worked as a journalist the other half of my life, writing articles, books for about 1.5 years in film business. So I saw a little bit of the world and many, many different topics. So I'm a little bit trained in interconnecting and understanding more complicated fields of research. This is maybe my core quality. And I started to deal with environmental monitoring when I was in Norway. Actually, I was working in Norway in the field of electrosensitivity for a company supplying measuring material like this one and shielding materials and giving courses for the people to understand what is happening if somebody becomes electrosensitive. And when I was there, I kind of was asked to look at chemical analysis of dying plants and the rainwater that caused the plant death and soil samples, because the farmers realized they're losing parts of their harvest that year. It was 2012, but they didn't know why. So they went to the labs, and then they had the lab results and they couldn't read it. They saw values, but they didn't even know what should have been on these papers. So they addressed me as a little bit crazy scientist from Germany and asked for help. And since then, I'm working on this chemtrail topic. And I think we looked through it now. It took quite a while to understand the different, let's say, the different agendas behind it, because it is not a single agenda. It's not a single group that has interests and is doing something to get what they want. It is a kind of onion-like structure of different groups who have different interests, and the longer you research on the topic, the more layers you discover. So what I'm trying to do today is kind of to dive through this onion-like structure and to try to give you a picture of those different agendas behind chemtrailing. There are two things I'm not going to do, and where I really would ask everybody who is discussing the topic, don't stare into the sky and try to figure out whether the thing you see is a chemtrail or contrail. It leads to nothing. It's a fruitless discussion, and we cannot solve this from down here. You cannot grab the stuff up there. You cannot make a chemical analysis. Just staring at it is hopeless. And the other thing that took me about 1 year, one lost year, is to deal with chemical analysis. This has one reason. If you make chemical analysis, you take a substance and dilute it in acids, and then whatever is dissolved by the acid can be analyzed. And what you get is metal values. You don't have a clue, if you did that, about the chemistry you analyzed or the crystal structure you analyzed, because everything that is dissolved, is gone, and all you have is the metal. This is one problem. You don't really see what you have. And the other problem is that not everything is soluble in acids. And actually the entire core technologies that we could discover later, if you check them in the lab, they are all completely resistant to acids. So there's no chance to get the real McCoy by chemical analysis. So those are two things I'm going to completely skip, also out of time reasons. I want to enter the entire picture from a different angle for today. And this is if we have somebody who is doing things in secret. It's not published in the newspapers. He will not talk about it in public. Then you have the other side of the game, that somebody is trying to figure out what is happening. And then there comes this ugly word, conspiracy theory, and one feels isolated.
Could you stand closer to the podium, because it's better lit that way.
Here, okay.
Thank you.
No, I dropped it.
Sorry.
Um, if you're confronted with this thing that you might be a conspiracy theorist, then this is something emotional. Nobody wants to stand outside society. Nobody wants to be the weird guy. So this is basically an ugly argument that is used to make people shut up. So this can be fought with a few very, very not rational, just clever moves. We want to talk about chemtrails. So the first question that comes up to my mind is, where does this word come from? And this is a question that is beyond theory, because you can find out where the word comes from. And it comes from soldiers of the US Army, mostly US Air Force, who brought this word into the English language because they were sitting at the US Air Force Academy, attending classes of the chemical faculty. And one of the classes is the chemtrail class. This is kind of, when you study at this university, the class where you learn how to make chemtrails. Yeah. This doesn't touch the question, do chemtrails exist up in the sky or not? The only thing we can answer by looking at this chemtrail class is we can see this is a military technology. We don't know if it is applied or not. But we can study the technology because it's taught at the university. And this manuscript is a little bit hard to read. It's like 260 pages, roundabout that. And basically it's examination questionnaires. So there's not a single answer in it, but there are thousands of questions. And when you take this manuscript and answer all the questions from these examinations, then you gather the knowledge. And from this knowledge, like with a jigsaw puzzle, you can back engineer what chemtrailing is. And basically the topics they are dealing with is aluminum coating of plastic surfaces is a big issue. And the synthesis of nylon fibers especially. This is one part of this chemtrail class. And if you want to know what this is good for, there's one military application called spoofer sprays. These are aluminum-coated nylon fibers, and they use it to hide planes from radar detection. This is not a big secret. It is officially admitted by state authorities that at certain NATO maneuvers in the sky, they use these spoofer sprays to train to hide airplanes. So this is one part that is described in this manuscript. The other half is a little bit more difficult to read and to analyze. It very, very much looks like that they are talking about spray pyrolysis, which is the production of crystalline nanoparticles in a combustion process. This is something that is done in industry when you want to produce certain types of nanoparticles. It is a very cheap and very efficient way to produce nanoparticles. And there are two ways in industry and in this manuscript. One possibility is you take like metal salts that you can solute in water, and then you take this water and run it through a ultrasound nozzle that is kind of turning it into millions of very, very small droplets. And these droplets are brought into a flame. And then the water evaporates, and the salt content of the little droplet forms a small dust particle. And if the flame is hot enough, it will eventually melt and recrystallize. And depending on the temperature and on the droplet sizes, you can create crystalline particles, you can create amorphous particles. This is one possibility that is within the range of spray pyrolysis. The other possibility is not to use water, but to directly use combustible liquids like methane or whatever. I think methane is within the US military the first choice. And then you don't even need a secondary ultrasound nozzle. You can use the ultrasound nozzles that create the vapor that is burned within a jet engine. So this is basically the chemical and technical knowledge that is taught in the chemtrail class. So we get a first idea what this technology is about. We still don't know if it is used regularly, if it is used sometimes, if this is something that is meant for wartime and in peacetime nobody even touches these technologies. We just learned something about the technology. Now, when you see how successful this way of looking at things is, you know, we answered many questions where other people were searching, talking, discussing years and years and came to no fruitful conclusions. There's something that is very, very intelligent. If you have somebody that might have plans he doesn't want you to know, it is a very good thing to go to the places where these people are alone among each other and talk about what they do. Yeah? Then you can listen and understand what they plan. Actually, there's no other way to find out what's happening. So I started to get interested in internal papers of certain agencies. And there was one stupid mistake done by some network specialists in NASA. They published an internal paper, I think it's like 12, 15 years ago, that was classified, and it appeared for 2 days in the public domain of the main NASA website. And some people just by incident found it and copied the paper. And since then, actually this is public domain. It's brought out every now and then. It's discussed by people every now and then. It's not like a text that is giving a full description of what they are doing. Basically, it's just a PowerPoint that is displaying certain core terminologies. This is the paper in the original form, and the title is a little bit funny. It's Future Strategic Issues for Future Warfare. And they project this on the year 2025 as if they talk about future technologies. And then you have a very big, very small subtitle, The Future is Now. Now I'm a bit confused. Is it now or is it in 15, 20 years that this is going to be brought out? If you go into the entire thing, you find a number of irritating statements. This is kind of the second page, the little one on top. Bots, borgs, and humans. Welcome to the future. Bots is short term for nanobots, nanorobots. Borgs is a term coming from Star Wars? No, not Star Wars. Star Trek filming. It's the species that is assimilating other species by turning them into half computer, half being. And humans, I guess they mean themselves, the one who are not affected by those games and rule the entire thing afterwards. And they just name a number of technologies that are going to be used in future wars. And they explicitly say the war of the future is not in between countries. They expect to have a world government. So the war happening on this planet is between the government and the normal people. And this completely different type of war will need completely different weapons. And then they list all those weapons. And there are certain things that are solved for them on nano level, on the level of nanoparticles. Sensor swarms. If you have the nanoparticles in the air, it's a swarm. And it has smart dust. This is something we will find later in the details we found in the environment. Nanotags, things that are placed within the human body to give them opportunity to track you down every single second and read out what you think and what you feel. And something that is not explained in this paper, they call it co-opted insects, whatever this is. I just want to point out at this moment that this is in their paper, because we're going to find things that are going very much to remind us of these words. Other things in this paper that are worth mentioning, weapons that are apparently legal. Yeah, they are talking about weapons that are hidden somewhere in the civil domain. Everybody is dealing with them, everybody is using them, and one of them is the microwave. Microwave is used for mobile phones, it's used for smart meters, it's used for wireless LAN connections, and we're surrounded by microwaves, and they enter our body, and we think this is just a side effect of technical applications. But NASA classifies microwaves as a non-lethal weapon that is apparently legal. And they also name the effect of those weapons. It's behavioral performance decrements, seizures, gross alteration in brain function, 30 to 100% increase in brain flow, in blood flow in the brain, and also lethal effects that come over the time. So this is weapons brought out on mankind that NASA is openly talking about, just projecting it in the paper to the future. And we are falling for this. We think it's something clever to have a mobile on your head half of the day. What they also have, and this is something that refers to Kara's work, is explosive microdust that can be intelligently moved through the air to certain areas. You can up-concentrate it and form an explosive lens. And it can also go intentionally into human beings to kill them from inside. They say that it's clever enough, the system, to go into underground facilities with the dust, with the explosive dust, to access people who are hiding down there. So this is basically this NASA document that is giving kind of abstract picture what could be airborne in the future, or maybe, because the future is now, could be airborne already today. The next possibility to find out what is happening is to talk to whistleblowers. And there are not many whistleblowers around who really reveal essential facts. We have people like WikiLeaks, what's his name? Julian Assange. If you look who his lawyer is, it's the same lawyer that is serving the Rothschild family. And he's got massive attention by the state media. It was like building up a hero, you know. He's fucking 2 blonde Scandinavian girls. What a nice guy, you know. And then he's everybody's heroes, and then he's allowed to talk about certain things. And if you exactly look at the things he put into public, somehow it was serving the interests of the people in power. Now we have the other guy from the United States, the NASA guy, Snowden. What does he do? He's telling us that the intelligence community is listening to phone calls. This is something I know from the 1920s, that this is what the people do. And here and there he's dropping some things, but it's not actually the thing that is published on mainstream media. But mainstream media is carrying him, and Putin is offering him asylum. Well, I think, okay, I'm revealing other things, and nobody ever offered me asylum, and not a single newspaper is printing my truth. So there must be something wrong about these people. But sometimes you get whistleblowers who don't get public attention. And they deliver papers, and those papers are kind of interesting. There's one paper I want to mention that is handed around in Germany because it's written in German. And the guy was the technical director of an institute that was working on smart dust. And he suffered from cancer, and he had a kind of, 3-4 months to live before the cancer would kill him. And he regretted the things he did during his life. He realized that the money he got for it was not really worth anything, and that the things he did were not really friendly, and he basically put part of the technical concept on paper, gave enough information to make it possible to prove that it exists. And what he described basically was based on, maybe this is something this is not for this audience, this is something that is going to the intelligence community that for sure is going to listen to this lecture as well. The name of the project is Rabe Neu in German. Translated it would be Raven New, so that you know that we know what you do. And the guy revealed a few things about this project that even the people in the project do not know. And this is the message that is now going to the intelligence community, because you should know what is wrong about this project. So what he did, he's talking about genetic engineering. And before I would like to mention a few things that he mentioned, I would like to give you an overview about the possibilities in genetic engineering that are publicly known. Not to everybody, but it is public domain. So in genetic engineering, you can create DNA, which is the full genetic information like it is in the cell, and you can split this thing into half and have kind of half of the structure, only one side of it, the spiral, and this is RNA. And in genetic engineering, it is very clever to use RNA because it has the full functionality, but it doesn't spoil the next generation. So this is something they really like to work on, because you can manipulate without destroying and without risking the future. If you look at DNA and RNA, there are a number of different functions to it. One function is that these fragments of RNA, DNA produce light of certain qualities. This is connected, it's called optogenetics, the entire field of research. And it is the teaching about how the genetics produce biophotons and produce the light body of a being. This is kind of the blueprint that is controlling the building up of forms, the morphogenetic field that is giving us the structure we are. So this is all done by this DNA. And if you synthesize DNA, this is done by printing today. You write down the code you want to produce, and then this is going into a DNA or RNA printing machine. So you can define every single base pair of the structure and print it out. So what they do is, one of the fields is optogenetics, to invent and produce little fragments of RNA, DNA that produce light. The second thing is this, and the second natural function of DNA is to produce substances. These parts of the DNA are producing RNA, the RNA is producing proteins, and the proteins start to build up the matter that the body is built out of. And also, like healing substances and poisons can be produced by cells. And this is one function embedded in a certain span of this DNA. So this is something they say, there's medicine, for example, artemisinin. It's very, very expensive to extract it from plants. So they just extract the little portion of the genetic information that is doing this substance and insert it into some microbes, and then they can create artemisinin in big amounts. This is medicine, how that works. So we have light-producing things and we have substance-producing things. And then there's a new field of research. They realized that the base pairs can be mounted into a chain in a way that functions like a computer, like a logical element. And this is if you visualize this, it's like the old method with telephones, when you were dialing with sound. Every base pair has a resonance frequency. It's somewhere in the terahertz range. And if you hit the right frequency, it is opening, like a light conducting unit. And if you have a chain of these base pairs that react on different frequencies, you need a sequence of sounds to open all the fragments to make the entire thing conductive. So it goes like do 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 do, and then the next part of the genetic thing is activated to either produce light or to produce poison. And this is something beautiful out of their view of the world, because if you bring this RNA or DNA into the human body, you can kind of take a radio signal and activate it from outside to produce any substance you want or to produce any light you want. Light is emotion, light is thought, light is everything. Everything we sense as experience of ourselves. And a substance can do everything with us. It can poison us slowly, it can kill us immediately. And this is controllable by radio frequencies without risking that it is triggered without anyone to want it being triggered. And the guys said, actually, we know that this is dangerous to bring this out, so that was in the papers, so we introduced deactivation code, like a line of sounds that is completely taking the system out, and so that it cannot be abused by other entities. This is what he said. And he said this is airborne since 2003 in Europe. And he said that the second war, the last war in Iraq, was only done to test the system. It was the only real reason for the war. This is what he wanted to tell us, or from my point of view, the important stuff. Then he said some things aside that I counted to be very, very important. I don't think he did. He said they spent half a year and $10 billion to optimize the cluster topology. And this is something that I guess says nothing to anyone here, but if you're into the topic, if it's like having a virus and you want to bring the virus into a human being to have him infected with this, cluster topology is of no interest. You need to think about cluster topologies if you want to have this RNA or DNA clusters carry intelligence, carry soul, carry an artificial life form. Then it makes sense. And if you picture this, we are infected with this RNA, and the RNA is forming a cluster of 1 millimeter distances around us. And a cluster like this is able to carry a computer program or an artificial, non-physical structure or being. This structure can hoover through the field, but it also can hoover into us. And this structure knows how to access the light production, and it knows how to access the production of poisons. And it also carries intelligence in itself and has the ability to make decisions. This is something that is just implied by the fact that he said we needed to optimize cluster topology. It's a little bit far out, it's a little bit speculation within this, but it gives me a kind of triggering moment when I listen to the word smart dust. Yeah? I get the feeling that this somehow is related to this capability of these optimized cluster topology to carry intelligence and to make its own decisions, if you want so. So this basically is just by looking at the spots where these people are among themselves and listening to some people who spoke out before they died. And the thing now I want to mention, this is the address to the intelligence community,